Welcome to Sleepy Science Tales, and tonight you are invited into a gentle journey about our home world, drifting quietly through the dark sea of space. Before we begin, take a slow, easy breath. Let your shoulders drop, let your thoughts soften, and allow yourself to settle into a calm sense of curiosity. If you feel comfortable, share in the comments where you are tuning in from around the world. It helps build a peaceful little community of sleepy explorers, all falling asleep under the same sky. Tonight we imagine a quiet, impossible question. What would happen if Earth stopped spinning? It sounds dramatic, maybe even frightening. Yet here it becomes a soothing exploration filled with clarity, soft pacing, and an easy unfolding of each idea. Nothing rushed, nothing loud. Just a calm walk through the science behind a world that gradually slows, settles, and eventually stands still. Earth spins once every 24 hours, creating the reliable rhythm of day and night that shapes all life. This constant motion influences winds, oceans, weather, magnetic fields, and the length of each sunrise and sunset. It has shaped the planet since its beginning, yet we rarely think about it. The turning of Earth happens so smoothly that we forget it is part of everything we experience. Tonight we shine a gentle light on that unseen motion and let our minds wander through what would unfold if this ancient rotation slowly faded away. The story begins before anything unusual happens. Earth continues to turn at great speed, especially near the equator where the surface travels almost 1,000 miles per hour. Sunlight moves across the ground in its familiar pattern. Seasons continue in their steady cycle. Winds sweep across coastlines. Oceans rise and fall with the pull of the moon. Billions of people carry on with their lives, unaware of the deep forces working beneath their feet. If Earth ever slowed, the early signs would be quiet and subtle. Nothing dramatic at first, just the tiniest clues in nature and technology. But even before the surface senses anything, changes would begin deep within. The molten outer core, a swirling ocean of liquid iron, would adjust its flow as the rotation weakens. This gentle shift would slightly influence Earth's magnetic field, causing tiny variations that only highly sensitive instruments could detect. Birds that migrate using magnetic cues might drift a little off course. Whales might take unfamiliar paths through the sea. These adjustments would be small, barely noticeable to the world at large, yet they mark the earliest threads of a huge transformation. On the surface, the first detectable sign would be the stretching of the day. At the beginning, the change is microscopic, a fraction of a second here and there. Only atomic clocks would notice the slow drift between the planet's rotation and the ticking of timekeeping instruments. Scientists who monitor global time standards would see the shift first, watching their readings slide gently away from expected values. Still, life on Earth would feel completely normal. Sunrises would arrive at familiar moments, evenings would fall when they usually do, and no one rushing to work or school would sense anything unusual. But quietly, steadily, tiny changes accumulate. Longer days mean longer stretches of warming sunlight. Plants that rely on precise light cues would feel this first. Leaves might open slightly later, flowers might close a little earlier, and internal rhythms in many species would begin adjusting by seconds each week. Animals that wake or sleep based on dawn and dusk cues would follow this new schedule instinctively. Birds might shift the timing of their morning chorus. Nocturnal creatures might begin their nightly wanderings at different moments. These changes unfold naturally, without stress or confusion because the pace is so gentle. Nature adapts to rhythm just as a body adapts to breathing. Weather patterns feel the shift next. The jet streams, those great rivers of air that circle the globe, depend partly on Earth's rotation. As the rotation slows, the jet streams begin to wobble and stretch. Storm paths drift in unusual ways. A calm region might suddenly experience a long, steady breeze. A coastline known for strong winds might enjoy long spells of stillness. None of this is violent or chaotic. It is simply the atmosphere adjusting to a planet that is turning more slowly beneath it. Ocean currents respond as well. These giant underwater conveyor belts move heat around the planet and help shape climate. Their flow depends partly on rotation. As the spin weakens, the currents slow slightly and drift from their traditional routes. Fishermen might notice seasonal catches appearing in unusual places. Coral reefs might behave differently due to small temperature shifts. These changes are tiny at first, yet they signal a world that is beginning to relearn its own patterns. Tides begin running late too. The moon's gravitational pull remains steady, but as Earth slows, the ocean does not rise and fall in the same rhythm. High tide arrives minutes later each day. Then hours later over the months and years that follow. Coastal ecosystems quietly adapt. Crabs emerge at new times. Shorebirds adjust their feeding routines. These subtle signals ripple across the coasts of every continent. Astronomers observe some of the clearest early evidence. Telescopes that track star positions would slowly lose alignment because Earth's rotation no longer matches predicted values. Observatories around the world would recalibrate more frequently, each one confirming the same steady drift. The planet is slowing. For the public, these early changes feel interesting rather than alarming. People mention that the sun seems to rise a little differently. Gardeners notice plants behaving oddly. Farmers adjust watering or planting schedules. Conversations begin between neighbors, colleagues, and nature enthusiasts. Something about the timing of the day feels off, even if only by a little. Scientific organizations start issuing statements. Rotation data is gathered and shared. People learn that Earth's spin is decreasing more quickly than usual. Some feel curious, some concerned, but life continues without disruption. The world remains familiar and safe. Nature continues adapting across every region of the globe. Birds shift migration patterns. Sea life follows new currents. Weather drifts gently into unfamiliar shapes. Plants grow under daylight rhythms that slowly stretch across the weeks. The slowing rotation affects Earth's shape too. The equatorial bulge, caused by rotation, gradually relaxes over time. The planet becomes more spherical in tiny increments. As this happens, water begins its long, slow journey toward the poles. Great ocean basins at the equator lose height by centimeters, then meters over the centuries to come, while polar regions experience a gentle rise. These changes are invisible in the early stages, but measurement satellites would detect them clearly. Aircraft and navigation systems begin requiring constant updates. Pilots correct headings more often. Wind patterns that they rely on for efficient flight start behaving differently. It is nothing dangerous, simply another sign that the world's background mechanics are changing. Human society continues on in its usual rhythm, while scientists, researchers, and environmental observers quietly piece together the puzzle. They understand that if Earth is slowing, it will eventually move towards stillness. That realization brings new urgency to research and modeling. What will happen next? How will the atmosphere respond? What will the oceans do? How will ecosystems evolve over decades, centuries, and millennia? For now, though, most people live exactly as they always have. The world looks the same, feels the same, and behaves in familiar ways. Only the keenest observers notice the small drift of sunlight across the sky, the unusual timing of tides, or the quiet shift in winds. This is the early stage of the journey, a gentle period where the world still feels like the Earth we know, even as the first quiet signs of a deeper transformation begin to take shape. The planet is slowing down, learning a new rhythm, and inviting us to follow its unfolding story, one soft moment at a time. As the slowing continues, the gentle drift in timing becomes more noticeable. What began as fractions of a second has now grown into whole minutes, then longer. The sun still rises in the east and sets in the west, yet the rhythm feels subtly stretched. In some places, mornings seem to linger, with soft light hanging low over hills and cities for what feels like a little longer than before. In other regions, evenings feel unusually drawn out, with twilight holding the horizon in shades of pink and gold, as if reluctant to let the darkness in. Human routines begin to bend around this new pattern. People set their alarms a little earlier or later, without always knowing why. School opening hours shift slightly for practical reasons, like waiting for the daylight to reach a certain brightness. Workers in outdoor jobs such as farmers, construction crews, and fishers start timing their days more carefully by the sun rather than by the clock. In many places, people find themselves saying things like, "It feels like the days are getting longer," as if the sky itself is slowing down. Biologists notice that circadian rhythms, the internal clocks in humans, animals, and even plants, are under gentle pressure to adapt. Our brains are tuned to a cycle of about 24 hours, guided by light and darkness. As days stretch, this internal rhythm must adjust. Some people notice changes in their sleep patterns. They may feel a little more alert late into the evening, or slightly drowsy at unexpected times. Nothing dramatic, nothing sudden, just a quiet negotiation between the world inside the body and the world outside the window. Plants show their own form of adjustment. Sunflowers follow the path of the sun in the sky, and as that path takes longer to complete, their motion changes too. Flowers that open at dawn and close at dusk now respond to a shifting schedule. In some regions, growing seasons subtly lengthen. Extra minutes of light each day add up to extra hours across weeks and months, and in cooler climates, this can encourage longer periods of growth. Farmers may see some crops flourish with the longer light, while others require careful management to prevent stress or overexposure. Far above the fields and forests, winds are slowly reorganizing. The great circulation cells that move warm air from the equator toward higher latitudes depend partly on how fast the planet spins. As the spin slows, these cells expand and stretch. Subtropical dry zones may shift slightly, nudging deserts or semi-arid regions into new positions on the map over long timescales. Rain belts slide slowly, bringing more frequent showers to some regions and drier spells to others. Climatologists create new models to track these gradual changes, watching the planet's atmosphere learn how to flow over a more slowly turning world. Ocean currents continue to adjust, following a similar logic. In the deep sea, cold water slowly rises and warm water slowly sinks, creating a vast global circulation that helps balance temperatures across the planet. Rotation shapes the paths of these currents, bending and twisting them into familiar loops. As rotation weakens, those paths straighten slightly, changing where warm and cool water meet at the surface. Coastal communities begin noticing that local waters feel warmer or cooler than they remember from childhood. Fish populations shift their ranges. Coral reefs in some areas find their environment becoming more favorable, while others experience new stresses. The equatorial bulge relaxes with patient steadiness. Over very long periods, the planet's shape becomes more spherical. This change is not something that anyone can see with their eyes from the ground, yet satellite measurements reveal it clearly. As the bulge smooths out, ocean water starts to creep toward higher latitudes. In equatorial regions, sea level falls slightly. Along some tropical coastlines, new strips of shoreline slowly appear, shallow sandbars and mudflats emerging where water once stood. Near the poles, the opposite happens, with water inching upward against rocky coasts and icy shelves. This movement is slow and spread across generations, giving human societies time to adapt, move, and reinforce where needed. In the skies, aircraft continue crossing the world, but pilots and flight planners notice that high-altitude winds have become less predictable. Jet streams weaken in some places and strengthen in others. Routes that used to save fuel by riding strong tailwinds may no longer offer the same advantage. Aviation engineers recalibrate assumptions, incorporating the new behavior of Earth's atmosphere into their planning. Satellites that depend on precise timing and orbital predictions require more frequent updates too, as the slowing rotation slightly affects reference frames used for navigation and communication. Across thousands of cities, people look up at the sky and simply feel that time has become stretched. The arc of the sun across the day seems to move more slowly. Long afternoons spill into early evenings in a way that feels almost dreamlike. For some, there is a beauty in this, a sense that the world has eased its pace. For others, especially those whose work is tightly tied to schedules and shifts, there is a new challenge in aligning human time with planetary time. Traditional time zones, originally designed around a 24-hour day, slowly lose their clean alignment with local noon. Governments and organizations face a choice. They can redefine time zones and national clocks, or they can gradually accept that the clock on the wall will not always match the position of the sun. In many places, there is a quiet wave of adjustment, with regions choosing to shift their official time in small steps to stay closer to solar noon. In other regions, people simply adapt, living with the idea that midday on the clock might not mean the sun is directly overhead. This period becomes one of transition in human culture. Some communities reconnect more closely with natural cycles, planning their day not by digital deadlines, but by light, temperature, and the feeling of the sky. Others lean deeper into artificial light and climate control, building environments indoors that remain stable regardless of the changing day length outside. In both cases, human creativity and resilience show through. People are very good at adapting, especially when change is slow and gradual. As the rotation slows further, the length of a single day might stretch beyond 24 hours to 25, then 26, then more. Each increase changes the balance between warming and cooling. On the side of Earth facing the sun, light and heat have more time each day to build, causing daytime temperatures to climb slightly higher. On the night side, extended darkness allows more cooling, sending temperatures slightly lower before sunrise returns. At first, the difference is small, but the trend is clear. The planet is gently stepping toward a world where day and night are no longer equal halves of a quick spinning cycle. This pattern has direct consequences for weather systems. Longer heating periods create broader zones of rising warm air, especially over continents. Thunderstorms and large cloud formations may grow taller and more energetic in certain places, fueled by extended sunlight. At the same time, longer nights allow the surface to cool more deeply, strengthening temperature contrasts between land and sea. These contrasts feed new types of wind and storm patterns, shifting familiar climate bands into new arrangements. For ecosystems, these changes bring both challenges and opportunities. Plants that evolved in tight alignment with the 24-hour cycle must adjust their internal chemistry to manage slightly longer days. Some species adapt slowly, adjusting their photosynthesis, water use, and flowering periods. Others struggle in certain climates, opening space for new combinations of species to thrive. Forest edges may move. Grasslands may expand or contract. Wetlands could dry in some regions while flourishing in others, depending on changes in rainfall and evaporation. Animals respond in complex ways. Predators that hunt at dawn or dusk experience longer twilight periods to move and feed. Prey animals must adapt their vigilance to a stretched pattern of danger. Migratory routes may shift to match new temperature zones and food distributions. Over generations, evolution quietly nudges behaviors, body clocks, and even anatomy toward better alignment with the slower turning world. In the background of all this, scientists refine their understanding of what is to come. If Earth's rotation continues to slow, they know that the long-term end state will be a planet that eventually stops turning relative to the Sun. Leaving one side in some equatorial ports, find that their harbors reveal more sand and rock during low tide than they did a generation earlier. In far northern and southern regions, the opposite occurs. Shorelines creep inland by small increments, barely noticeable at first, yet clear in long-term records. These shifts happen slowly, softly, and steadily, giving communities time to adapt, while scientists continue to map the planet's changing shape. As the lengthening days stretch further, human behavior gradually shifts toward new rhythms. Cities adjust their energy use to account for longer periods of daylight, with lights turning on a little later and heating or cooling systems changing their daily peaks. Transit networks alter timetables to align with new patterns of morning and evening brightness. Schools experiment with flexible start times, using local sunlight rather than strict clock hours to guide their schedules. There is no crisis, no sudden disruption, only a slow realization that the sky's rhythm is beginning to guide society more than clocks do. Cultural habits evolve as well. People spend more time outdoors in the long glow of extended afternoons. Parks stay busy later into the evening. Outdoor markets remain open beyond their usual hours. Festivals and gatherings shift naturally toward warmer, brighter periods of the stretched day. Communities in northern latitudes, used to dramatic differences between summer and winter daylight, adapt easily. Regions nearer the equator experience the shift more subtly, yet even there, people comment on the lingering warmth of the sun and the slowly changing balance between day and night. In rural landscapes, farmers begin planting crop varieties that favor slightly longer sunlight hours. Fields of wheat and barley may grow taller. Fruit trees may blossom at different intervals. Agricultural planners monitor these changes closely, adapting their strategies to the new conditions with each passing season. Agricultural calendars, once finely tuned to a 24-hour rotation, gradually stretch to match the evolving pace of daylight and darkness. Animals continue responding to the new world in instinctive ways. Birds that rely on the angle of sunlight to guide migration adjust their timing, leaving earlier or later depending on where they live. Some species thrive with the longer days, finding more time to forage and raise their young. Others face new challenges, such as increased exposure to predators during extended twilight hours. Over years and generations, wildlife gradually reshapes its patterns, demonstrating the flexibility and resilience that biodiversity makes possible. Forests feel the change too. Longer daylight increases the time trees can photosynthesize, subtly influencing growth rates. In cooler climates, forests might expand as longer periods of warmth lengthen the growing season. In hotter regions, certain species may begin seeking cooler microclimates, shifting gradually upslope or into shaded valleys. These transitions unfold slowly enough for ecosystems to adapt, forming new balances across changing landscapes. In the oceans, the slow shift in rotation continues altering the distribution of nutrients. Regions where cold, nutrient-rich water once upwelled in predictable cycles may experience slightly different timing. This affects plankton blooms, which ripple up through the entire food web. Some fisheries improve, others diminish, always in step with the planet's changing heartbeat. Oceanographers document these patterns with careful observation, mapping the new rhythm of the sea as the world adjusts to its slower turn. Meanwhile, the scientific community works with increasing clarity. As more data is collected, a shared understanding begins to form. The slowing of Earth's rotation is no longer a curiosity, but a defining feature of the planet's future. Research teams build models that project the long-term consequences. They simulate temperature gradients across continents, forecast shifts in rainfall, and predict how atmospheric circulation will behave as the day length continues to stretch. These models become essential tools for understanding the centuries and millennia ahead. Yet despite this growing knowledge, the world remains peaceful and familiar. Children still play under the afternoon sun. Birds still sing at dawn. Families gather in the warm glow of evening light. The planet feels unchanged to the senses, even as the great forces beneath it slowly redraw the shape of life. The transition is so gentle that it blends seamlessly into daily existence, like a long, slow breath spread across generations. The extended day continues lengthening, and though the changes remain modest, the trajectory is unmistakable. The balance between sunlight and darkness is shifting. The rhythm of the Earth is easing. Winds, tides, and skies are adjusting. Life is finding its place within this new tempo. Humanity watches, curious and calm, as the planet moves toward a future defined not by 24 quick hours, but by long stretches of light and long stretches of night. These quiet years mark the end of the early stage, a time when the world still looks almost exactly as it always has, even as subtle forces shape its future. The foundations are shifting gently. The sky is beginning to linger, and the first act of a slowing Earth draws to a peaceful close, preparing the planet for the deeper changes still to come. As the slowing continues, the changes that once lived quietly in the background begin to rise into everyday awareness. The length of a day is no longer something scientists alone observe. It becomes part of ordinary conversation. People refer to certain evenings as unusually long, and mornings as strangely slow to arrive. Whether reporters begin mentioning the shift with gentle clarity, explaining how extended daylight influences temperature and wind across the week. Little by little, the world acknowledges that the turning of Earth is easing into a new rhythm. One of the first large-scale effects appears in the behavior of global wind patterns. With a slower rotation, the Coriolis effect weakens. This means moving air is no longer deflected as strongly as it flows across the planet. Winds begin to travel in straighter paths. Storm systems, which once curved gracefully across continents and oceans, drift in broader, slower arcs. Mid-latitude storms may take longer to form and move, lingering over regions for extended periods before gradually dissipating. Long-lived cloud decks spread across the sky, painting entire landscapes in soft grays or pale golds depending on the time of day. Weather in some regions becomes more predictable, almost calm, as the atmosphere loses some of its rotational energy. Other regions experience the opposite, with new patterns emerging that bring unusual combinations of heat, moisture, and air pressure. Some coastal areas that were once dry and windy begin receiving steadier rain as altered jet streams steer moisture into unfamiliar routes. Inland plains, once prone to quick-moving thunderstorms, might instead see long, gentle stretches of rain that fall over days rather than hours. Ocean currents respond in equally striking ways. Slower rotation weakens the great gyres that spiral across the oceans. These giant turning patterns flatten, spreading their influence across wider distances. Warm water moves poleward with greater reach, lifting sea temperatures in higher latitudes by small but significant amounts. Marine ecosystems adjust accordingly. Species once confined to tropical waters appear in cooler regions, thriving in the changed environment. Fishermen in northern seas find new species in their nets, while some traditional catches become rare or migrate further toward the poles in search of comfortable habitats. Far in the interior of continents, climate zones begin to drift. Grasslands expand where extended sunlight encourages stronger plant growth. Forests shift gradually upslope or toward regions where moisture and temperature find a new balance. Some deserts shrink slightly as changing winds bring intermittent moisture. Others grow, fueled by longer periods of daytime heat and extended nighttime cooling. These movements unfold like slow, breathing tides across generations, with ecosystems reshaping themselves in elegant response to the changing planet. Human society watches these patterns with a mixture of fascination and steady adaptation. Farmers adjust planting schedules to match the elongated days. Regions that once relied on specific rainy seasons find those periods drifting by weeks or even months. Agricultural calendars, which have guided human civilization for thousands of years, begin to stretch into new shapes. Some crops benefit from the longer sunlight, growing taller and producing larger yields. Others require more careful irrigation or shade, as extended daylight places gentle stress on their physiology. Astronomers continue refining their measurements as Earth's deceleration becomes easier to observe. The rotation rate, once stable, now shows clear signs of decline over years rather than centuries. Telescopes track stars and planets with small but accumulating discrepancies. Observatories recalibrate their instruments regularly, adapting to the evolving pace of the heavens. The changing rotation subtly alters the length of the solar day, influencing the apparent motion of the sky itself. People who stargaze notice that constellations seem to rise a little differently each night, shifting their positions in ways they cannot quite explain. The sky feels familiar, yet slightly new. In coastal cities, engineers plan for long-term shifts in sea level. Equatorial regions adapt to slight reductions in water height by expanding infrastructure along new stretches of exposed shoreline. Some communities reclaim land, creating parks, harbors, or small neighborhoods where waves once reached. At the same time, polar regions prepare for gradual increases in water levels. New seawalls, Raised foundations and updated drainage systems emerge in places where the ocean creeps a little higher each decade. These changes happen slowly enough that society has time to respond thoughtfully, shaping the coastline in harmony with the transforming world. The magnetic field continues to drift and weaken as the core responds to the slower spin. This change does not threaten life directly, but it does shift the behavior of particles in the upper atmosphere. Auroras may appear at slightly lower latitudes, filling night skies with gentle curtains of green and purple light. Migratory animals that rely on magnetic cues refine their navigation through new combinations of sensory information, using stars, currents, scents, and landmarks to travel their ancient routes. As the slowing becomes more significant, global temperature patterns begin forming a pronounced contrast. Extended daylight hours allow sunlight to linger and build warmth across continents. Extended nights, in turn, allow long stretches of radiative cooling. This creates stronger differences between daytime and nighttime temperatures, especially in regions far from large bodies of water. Some cities become known for unusually warm, lingering afternoons, followed by sudden, deep nighttime coolness. Others experience consistent moderation due to the stabilizing influence of nearby oceans. Architecture and city planning respond in elegant ways. Buildings incorporate deeper shade structures, reflective surfaces, and materials that release heat slowly to balance the stretched thermal cycle. In colder regions, homes adjust to longer nights by improving insulation and capturing warmth from the previous day's sunlight. Public spaces evolve too, with community areas oriented toward the best light conditions across the extended day. Social routines shift naturally, with people gathering later into the evening or resting during the warmest hours of the long afternoon. As the day length continues drifting further from 24 hours, society reaches a point where clocks and sunlight begin to diverge more noticeably. Official time may say it is noon, yet the sun stands at a different angle in the sky. People learn to live with this growing mismatch, treating clock time as a useful tool rather than a reflection of natural light. Some regions adopt flexible work hours that follow the brightness of the sky rather than fixed digits on a schedule. Others maintain strict timing, but acknowledge that daily routines feel slightly out of sync with nature. Despite these adjustments, the world remains calm. Life continues smoothly. People adapt just as they have throughout history, guided by curiosity, creativity, and resilience. The slowing of Earth becomes part of the cultural landscape. Stories, art, and music begin to reference the lingering sunsets and the long, gentle mornings that shape the new pace of life. The planet feels as though it is easing into a slower breath, and humanity moves with it. Nature, too, embraces the transformation. Forests shimmer under extended sunlight. Oceans reorganize into new patterns of life. Clouds drift across skies slightly slower than before. The entire Earth feels more unhurried, carrying its ecosystems, its weather, and its people into a new era defined by patience and quiet change. The slowing will continue, and the next phase will carry the world toward even more dramatic shifts. Daylight will stretch further. Nights will deepen. Heat and cold will diverge into stronger contrasts. Winds will evolve into new shapes. Oceans will reorganize more boldly. And the balance between sunlight and darkness will grow more uneven with every passing year. For now, the world lives in this middle stage, a time of gentle transformation, a time when everything is still recognizable, even as the horizon hints at the great changes still to come. As the slowing progresses, the balance between warmth and cold begins expanding into deeper contrasts. The sun now lingers long enough in the sky to warm the land more intensely than before, creating slow building heat that settles into soil, stone, forests, and cities. Nights stretch far enough to allow deeper cooling, drawing warmth back into the sky and sending long, slow breezes across the darkened landscape. The world starts to feel as if it is breathing in longer, slower cycles, with every rise of light and fall of darkness carving a new rhythm into the planet. In regions far from the sea, this contrast becomes more pronounced. Large continents heat quickly under prolonged sunlight, pushing warm air upward for hours on end. This rising air creates wide zones of low pressure that pull in cooler air from surrounding areas. The result is a new type of daytime breeze that lasts for much longer stretches. Nights bring an equally powerful but opposite effect. As the land cools over extended darkness, cold air sinks and spreads outward in wide, gentle flows. These nighttime winds move steadily through valleys, plains, and quiet towns, carrying a deep sense of stillness in their path. Forests respond with a calm, steady shift. Trees exposed to longer sunlight produce more energy during the day, storing it in their leaves and branches. Some species grow slightly taller. Others spread their crowns wider to capture more of the lingering light. In darker forests, the extended day allows beams of sunlight to reach deeper into the undergrowth. Ferns, mosses, and shade-loving plants adapt by adjusting their growth cycles to make the most of the enriched light. Forest animals follow suit, moving and hunting at new hours that match the shifting pattern of warmth and brightness. Lakes and rivers begin to show signs of the new climate rhythm as well. Longer days create extended warming on the surface of freshwater bodies, altering temperature layers that fish depend on. Some fish species move into deeper water during the bright hours, rising again during the lengthened twilight to feed. In colder regions, lake ice forms later into the season and melts earlier, responding to the elongated presence of daytime warmth. Over years, these subtle changes encourage new ecological balances, with species settling into different territories and niches. In the world's mountains, sunlight lingers against snow-covered peaks, sending runoff streams down their slopes for longer periods each day. Glaciers, already sensitive to temperature, adapt gradually as melting patterns shift. Some glaciers slow their retreat in regions where extended nights allow more cooling. Others advance a little more quickly in areas where long days bring sustained warmth. These movements are gentle but persistent, carving new shapes into the high-altitude landscapes over long spans of time. Human technology adjusts steadily. Solar energy systems become more efficient in many regions due to the lengthened hours of daylight, generating power well into what used to be early evening. Engineers refine battery storage to capture the extended sunlight, helping to balance the equally extended night. Wind turbines respond to the new atmospheric patterns, spinning for longer during the cooling hours of night and moving more slowly during the warmer daytime periods. Energy grids shift their peak times accordingly, aligning human infrastructure with the changing heartbeat of the sky. Travel by air and sea evolves to match the altered conditions. Pilots learn to anticipate long stretches of calm air where rotation-driven jet streams once dominated. At lower altitudes, air currents follow more direct paths, requiring careful adjustments to optimize fuel efficiency. Maritime navigation adapts as well. Ocean swells change in character due to altered wind patterns, and shipping routes shift subtly to take advantage of smoother seas in some regions and newly active waters in others. Cultures around the world continue reshaping their traditions in response to the growing length of day and night. Many communities begin celebrating the extended sunset, gathering outdoors to watch the sky shift through long, beautiful transitions of color. Artists capture these stretched twilight hours in paintings, films, and music. Poets write about the way time seems to slow as the planet eases into a gentler rotation. Stories and myths begin forming around the long days, weaving science with wonder in a way that feels ancient and natural. Education systems adjust their schedules, exploring new ways to align learning with periods of optimal light. In some regions, classes start later to take advantage of cooler mornings. In others, schools break earlier in the afternoon to let children enjoy the long, bright evenings. Workplaces follow similar patterns, experimenting with flexible hours that balance human needs with the shifting daylight. In a few places, communities shift their entire daily rhythm. Towns in hot climates begin scheduling more activities during the cooler night hours, using extended darkness to work, socialize, and travel comfortably. In colder climates, people embrace the long daylight for warmth and activity, gathering indoors during the extended night for rest, storytelling, or quiet reflection. Human creativity, always adaptable, finds a natural harmony with the changing planet. As the slowing becomes even more pronounced, the Earth's climate zones continue their gradual migration. Tropical climates stretch slightly outward, while temperate zones widen and drift. Polar regions, benefiting from extended sunlight during their seasons, warm by small degrees, allowing new species of plants and animals to move northward or southward into areas that were once too harsh for them. Sea ice coverage shifts accordingly, forming new patterns in both hemispheres. These changes unfold not with sudden shocks, but with patient constancy. The world still feels familiar. Oceans still rise and fall. Winds still circle seas and mountains. Life still grows, moves, and sings. Yet every living thing is adjusting, finding a comfortable place within the softened rotation. The long day deepens slowly, and the long night cools in steady cycles, guiding ecosystems into a new equilibrium. Through it all, people continue to look up at the sky with a quiet sense of wonder. Sunsets linger like paintings that refuse to fade. Dawn creeps gently across landscapes, stretching into long breaths of morning light. Stars and planets drift across a sky that moves differently now, creating a sense that the cosmos is revealing a new pattern, one shaped by the planet's easing turn. This stage of the transformation, defined by stretched light, shifting winds, and softly evolving climates, marks the threshold between the world humanity has always known and the world that is slowly emerging. The days are lengthening beyond what seemed possible. The nights are deepening into long pools of quiet and cool. The Earth continues to slow, and the planet prepares for the even greater changes that lie ahead. As time flows forward on this slowing Earth, the shift in the length of a single day crosses a threshold that no human culture has ever experienced. What began as days stretching from 24 to 25 hours has grown over generations into rotations that last not just hours longer, but many times their original length. A single cycle of sunrise, noon, sunset, and night now spans so long that a person can live through only a limited number of complete days and nights in their lifetime. Morning is no longer a brief part of the schedule. It is an entire season of the sky. The sun rises slowly, taking many hours to climb from the horizon to a comfortable morning height. The light brightens gently, filling valleys and cities, mountain slopes and coastlines, in a long, drawn-out wave of gold. Shadows stretch and shorten at a leisurely pace. By the time the sun reaches its highest point, people feel as if they have had an entire day beneath its rising. Yet the climb is only halfway through the long arc of light. On the illuminated side of Earth, the extended presence of the sun transforms the climate in profound ways. During this long day, the land absorbs energy continuously. Soil warms to depths it never reached before. Rocks and cliffs soak in heat for many hours, then slowly radiate it back into the air. Deserts, already used to intense sunlight, now become even more extreme, with daytime heat building over extended periods. Their skies shimmer with rising waves of air that carry dust high above the sands. In other regions, forests, fields, and wetlands adapt to the long presence of the sun with unique rhythms of growth, rest, and recovery. As temperatures rise across the long day, winds respond by forming slow but powerful circulation patterns. Warm air rises in vast columns, creating towering cloud systems that drift through the bright sky. These clouds may take many hours or even days to form, mature, and dissipate. Rainstorms become long events too. Instead of short showers, some regions experience extended periods of gentle rainfall that move slowly over the landscape, feeding rivers and lakes with a steady, calm flow. Lightning still strikes in some storms, yet even these dramatic flashes occur within a broader, slower pattern that matches the stretched day. On the dark side of the planet, night is no longer a brief return of stars. It is a deep, lingering season of darkness and cold. After the sun sets, temperatures drop steadily for a very long time. Snow and ice expand outward from polar and high-altitude regions, covering land that once only saw frost for short periods. The skies are filled with stars and planets that move almost imperceptibly. Constellations rise and fall so slowly that a single night can hold hours of the same arrangement of lights above. The Milky Way hangs overhead like a frozen river of starlight, watching silently over frozen fields and sleeping forests. Between the bright side and the dark side lies a vast band of twilight, a permanent belt of soft light circling the planet. In this region, the sun hovers near the horizon, never rising too high, never sinking fully away. The sky glows in shades of amber, pink, and gentle blue, with long shadows painting the ground. Temperatures remain milder here, balanced between the intense heat of the day side and the deep cold of the night side. Winds flow steadily around the planet, carrying air from hot regions toward cold ones and back, passing through the twilight belt as a kind of global breathing. Over time, life on Earth gravitates toward this twilight region. On the day side, some areas become too hot and dry for comfortable human settlement, especially deep within continents where the long sun-baked cycles push temperatures far beyond historical norms. On the night side, some areas become deeply frozen, covered in long-lasting snowfields and layers of ice. These places are not completely devoid of life, but they become difficult for humans to inhabit permanently. The twilight belt, however, offers a more stable environment. Here, communities find a balance of light and warmth that feels gentle and predictable. Crops can be grown under the soft, constant glow of a low sun. Temperatures remain moderate enough to allow both outdoor work and comfortable rest. In some places, people build cities that stretch along valleys aligned with this twilight zone, spreading across many kilometers in a line that follows the edge between day and night. Human society reorganizes slowly around this new geography. Migration occurs not in waves of panic, but in gradual movements guided by climate, opportunity, and curiosity. Families move toward the twilight regions over generations, drawn by more reliable temperatures and growing conditions. Coastal towns in the twilight belt become busy hubs of trade, connecting communities on the illuminated side with those on the dark side. Ships and aircraft travel along routes that follow the climate boundary, using steady winds and currents that form along the gradient between hot and cold. On the bright side, some specialized communities remain. Technological advances allow people to manage intense heat through reflective materials, deep shaded structures, and underground spaces that stay cool even when the surface air becomes very warm. These settlements focus on activities that benefit from abundant sunlight, such as solar energy harvesting and high-yield agriculture adapted to long daylight cycles. Fields of drought-resistant plants shimmer in the extended sun, drawing water from carefully managed underground reserves. On the night side, other specialized communities emerge in the colder regions, using thermal energy from the planet's interior, advanced insulation, and efficient energy systems to maintain warmth and comfort. Some of these settlements take advantage of the long, dark skies to operate observatories, studying the universe with clarity impossible under frequent daylight. In this extended night, the stars and galaxies become familiar companions, guiding navigation and inspiring new stories about the cosmos. Ecosystems reshape themselves into three broad patterns, echoing the structure of the planet. Dayside ecosystems adapt to heat and prolonged light, developing plants that can tolerate long exposure to the sun. Some plants open and close their leaves on extended schedules, resting during the hottest part of the long day and resuming activity when winds cool the air. Animals here become more crepuscular, active during the long morning and late afternoon, resting in shaded burrows, caves, or dense vegetation during the extended midday heat. Night-side ecosystems favor species that thrive in low light and cold. Bioluminescent organisms, already present in Earth's oceans and some land environments, become more widespread, lighting up dark forests and icy shores with soft glows. Animals develop heightened senses of hearing and smell to navigate the extended darkness. Predators and prey fall into new rhythms based on gradual cycles of cooling and warming, rather than quick alternations of day and night. Some plant species evolve to use reflected starlight or dim skyglow, storing energy with remarkable efficiency. In the twilight belt, ecosystems flourish with remarkable diversity. Here, light is soft enough to prevent extreme heat, yet bright enough to support a wide range of plant life. Forests of mixed species grow in gentle climates, with broadleaf trees, conifers, shrubs, and grasses, all sharing space. Rivers run steadily, fed by meltwater from cooler regions, and rainfall driven by global circulation. Birds follow migration routes along this band of mild conditions, moving gradually to follow shifting weather and food supplies. In many ways, the twilight region becomes the new heart of the biosphere. Around the world, water continues to redistribute in response to the planet's changed shape and climate. With the equatorial bulge mostly relaxed, oceans settle more deeply into polar basins. Ice cover spreads widely on the dark side, while parts of the bright side remain dry and open. The twilight belt often aligns with coastlines and inland seas where air and water temperatures make conditions ideal for rich marine and terrestrial life. Estuaries and wetlands become focal points of biodiversity, supporting fish, birds, and mammals in intricate webs of interaction. From space, the Earth looks dramatically different from the world humanity once knew. The division between the bright side and the dark side is striking, with a wide ring of gentle twilight circling the globe. Clouds swirl in broad bands that reflect the new atmospheric circulation. Large storm systems form slowly at the boundary between hot and cold air, then travel around the planet in sweeping arcs. Lights from human settlements cluster heavily along the twilight belt, faint on the bright side and sparsely scattered across the night side. Yet for the people who live on this transformed world, life feels ordinary in its own way. Children grow up knowing only long days or long nights, depending on where they were born. The older stories of short 24-hour days become part of history lessons, like tales of a different age. People rise, work, rest, and dream within the rhythm they inherit, adapting without fear because the changes arrived over many generations. The slowing of Earth has become a background fact, like gravity or the presence of the ocean, something simply accepted as part of existence. Science continues to explain and explore, but fear gradually fades into understanding. The long day and long night are not an ending, but a new configuration, a new balance of forces and climates. Earth has settled into a calmer spin, a slower rotation that shapes weather, life, and human culture in ways that are both challenging and beautiful. In this stage of the story, the planet is no longer the fast-turning world of early human history. It is a quieter, more deliberate Earth, with deep days, deep nights, and a gentle twilight that circles the globe like a halo. Life has moved, stretched, and adapted to fill every space where conditions allow, proving again that given time and patience, nature can find harmony even on a world that has changed its very pace of turning. The longer Earth remains in this slowed rotation, the more deeply every system settles into its new equilibrium. The contrast between the bright side, the dark side, and the twilight belt becomes a defining feature of the planet, shaping the behavior of air, water, life, and human civilization. Over time, the world begins to feel more like three interconnected realms than one continuous landscape, each with its own rhythm, its own challenges, and its own form of quiet beauty. On the bright side, the long day has grown so extended that entire phases of growth and rest fit within a single rising of the sun. Agriculture there evolves into something entirely new. Instead of planting cycles that follow short days and predictable seasons, farmers learn to work with immense periods of light and dark. Crops are chosen for their ability to withstand long exposure to sunlight without wilting. Fields are planted in carefully designed patterns that create shade at certain times, allowing the soil to recover and retain moisture. Some crops are grown beneath canopies of reflective material that redirect part of the sun's energy while still allowing healthy growth. Technology supports these regions as well. Cooling towers and subterranean irrigation channels help manage the intense heat of the prolonged day. Entire cities are built with deep shaded corridors that funnel cooler air towards central plazas. Houses sit partly underground to protect their residents from the warmest hours. And when the sun begins its long descent toward the horizon, people emerge to greet the cooling air, gathering outdoors as the world softens into an extended evening. On the dark side, the story is different yet equally rich. Here, communities become skilled at harnessing geothermal heat, extracting warmth from deep within the Earth's crust. Underground greenhouses glow with soft artificial light, supporting crops that thrive in controlled conditions. Domed settlements protect inhabitants from the cold winds that flow across the frozen plains. Life here takes on a cozy rhythm, with long nights spent near sources of heat and long periods of darkness filled with learning, storytelling, quiet work, and observations of the stars above. The skies on the dark side offer spectacular views that once existed only in the remote polar regions. With the sun absent for immense stretches of time, the stars shine with pristine clarity. The Milky Way arcs across the heavens in dazzling brightness, and distant galaxies sparkle like tiny, ancient lights. People develop a close relationship with the night sky, tracking slow changes in the positions of stars and planets, recognizing them as steady companions through the long darkness. Astronomy becomes part of everyday life, woven into culture, education, and local traditions. In the twilight belt, the most diverse expressions of life emerge. Here the sun hovers low, washing landscapes in constant soft light. Forests stretch across hillsides, shifting seamlessly into grasslands and marshes. Rivers and lakes reflect the warm colors of a sun that never rises too high. The climate remains steady and mild, supporting a wide variety of plant and animal species. Migratory birds follow the gentle winds that circle the planet, traveling along well-defined routes shaped by the constant glow of the horizon. Human settlements in the twilight belt become vibrant centers of culture, trade, and science. Streets are designed to capture the best of the soft light. Homes face the horizon, painted in colors that complement the perpetual sunrise. Markets stay open for long stretches of the day and night, since the distinction between them has lost its old meaning. People live comfortably within this band of gentle illumination, feeling a sense of belonging that connects them to both the heat of the bright side and the cold of the dark. Communication and travel between the three zones evolve into a natural part of life. High-altitude aircraft follow steady pathways above the twilight belt, where winds remain predictable and temperatures relatively stable. Massive solar-powered vessels cross the bright oceans, using abundant sunlight to propel themselves across long routes. On the dark side, ice-breaking ships navigate through frozen seas, illuminated by glowing hull lights that reflect off the surface of deep blue ice. Trade networks expand across the planet, each region offering something unique. The bright side provides vast amounts of solar energy, heat-resistant crops, and refined minerals extracted using constant daylight. The dark side offers rare metals preserved in frozen landscapes, geothermal power, and advanced research in astronomy and cryobiology. The twilight belt produces rich agricultural goods, flowers, fruits, timber, and freshwater resources nurtured by its stable climate. Ecosystems adjust to the global divide as well. In some areas, species learn to migrate gradually around the planet, following the slow movement of the light boundary. Animals that once traveled thousands of kilometers based on changes in season now move in response to the position of the sun in the sky, traveling with the twilight zone as it shifts minutely with the Earth's rotational pace. This new form of migration requires incredible endurance, guided by instinct and supported by the evolved balance of food, water, and safe habitat along the route. Meanwhile, the Earth's oceans settle more dramatically into their new patterns. On the bright side, long hours of solar heating create warm surface layers that stretch far down into the water column. This drives powerful convection currents that rise and fall on extended cycles, forming deep ocean patterns unlike anything in the world's earlier history. On the dark side, cold oceans freeze into thick ice shelves, under which unique ecosystems flourish. Strange glowing creatures drift through deep black water. Whales, seals, and fish follow extended patterns of feeding and resting, adapting to the long periods of darkness with remarkable precision. The twilight oceans, warmed moderately by the constant glow, become some of the richest waters in the world. Coral reefs grow along submerged shelves, illuminated by soft light and nourished by warm currents flowing from bright regions. Fish populations thrive, creating a diverse and balanced ecosystem that supports both marine life and the communities that depend on fishing. The atmosphere also continues evolving. Winds that once circled the globe in fast, complex patterns now settle into slow, looping flows that follow the temperature gradient between bright and dark. Giant convection cells move steadily from warm regions to cold ones, guiding clouds on long journeys across the sky. Rainfall becomes more regular in some regions, less common in others, forming predictable patterns that match the planet's new rotational rhythm. The magnetic field, influenced by the core's slowed motion, drifts into a weaker but more stable configuration. Auroras widen their reach, painting the sky with curtains of green, blue, purple, and red, even at mid-latitudes. On the dark side, these lights shimmer across frozen landscapes for hours at a time, creating scenes of breathtaking beauty beneath the quiet night sky. People respond to the world with a profound sense of adaptation. Children grow up learning that the sun does not rise and set each day, but takes long arcs across the sky. They study new forms of biology, climate science, and geography that describe a world divided by light. They learn about the history of the old 24-hour cycle, marveling at how quickly the days once passed. Families gather beneath the perpetual twilight to share stories of how human civilization changed slowly but steadily, finding balance with the new nature of time. Generations now move in harmony with the planet's slower turn. Life becomes less hurried, shaped by long cycles of light and dark rather than quick rotations of morning and evening. People measure their days in experiences rather than hours, learning to appreciate the gentle unfolding of time in a world where every moment stretches softly into the next. Humanity thrives not despite the change, but because of its patience in embracing the new rhythm of Earth. The great slowing has become an unspoken teacher, reminding every person and every creature that life can adapt, grow, and flourish under many different skies, so long as there is time to adjust. And now, the planet moves steadily toward an even deeper stage, where the slowing reaches a point that brings the longest days and nights imaginable. And the balance between heat and cold becomes a defining force for every corner of this evolving Earth. As Earth continues its long journey towards stillness, the length of a single rotation expands beyond anything life has ever experienced. What was once a long day becomes something closer to a season, stretching across vast spans of time. The sun rises so slowly that entire communities mark the event not as a daily occurrence, but as a significant moment in their calendar. When the first edge of sunlight appears on the horizon, it signals the beginning of a prolonged phase of light, warmth, growth, and movement across the illuminated part of the world. During this immense sunrise, the sky brightens by gentle degrees, shifting from deep blue to soft violet, then to hues of gold and pale amber. Shadows gradually shorten over many hours as the sun climbs its slow arc upward. People wake not because the sun suddenly bursts into the sky, but because the world brightens in a long, steady transformation that feels more like the turning of a giant cosmic page than the start of a new day. The extended light fills landscapes with a gentle glow that reaches into mountains, valleys, forests, deserts, and quiet towns. As the bright season takes hold, temperatures rise steadily. Continents warm with the sun's constant presence. Forests release scents carried by slow, warm breezes that drift across the land for days at a time. Rivers swell with glacial melt from areas where the extended sunrise is already softening the edges of ice. In some places, snow cover retreats slowly but consistently. In others, heat builds into deep layers within the ground, reshaping entire ecosystems as temperatures climb higher than they ever did when the planet rotated quickly. During the long period of daylight, the atmosphere undergoes powerful transformations. Warm air rises in great columns from sunlit land, forming massive convection systems that grow for many days before reaching maturity. These systems may become enormous cloud formations stretching thousands of kilometers, drifting slowly across continents. Rainfall becomes more steady and prolonged, sometimes falling for weeks at a time, as moisture-laden air cycles upward and downward in extended atmospheric rhythms. Thunderstorms still occur, but now they unfold gradually, with lightning flashing across towering clouds in slow sequences that illuminate the sky for long, poetic moments. On the side of Earth moving away from the sun, darkness spreads gradually too. The long sunset brings a deep, cooling calm as golden light fades into orange, then red, then finally into long hours of twilight. Temperatures fall gently at first, then more quickly as the sun drops farther below the horizon. Landscapes breathe out the warmth they stored during the bright season, releasing it into the thin, cooling air. A quiet stillness settles across forests, plains, and mountains as animals adapt to the approaching darkness. Once the sun fully disappears, the dark season begins. Cities and towns on the night side settle into long stretches of cool air and star-filled skies. The darkness is not oppressive but serene, painted with the soft glow of the Milky Way and the shimmering lights of auroras that dance gracefully across the polar and mid-latitude regions. The cold deepens slowly as each hour of darkness adds to the cooling that began during twilight. Lakes and rivers freeze in gentle layers. Snow drifts accumulate, shaped by the slow winds that flow from warm regions into cold ones. Humans living in the dark season adjust their activities to match the long night. Villages and towns glow with warm light from homes, geothermal centers, and energy systems designed to store power from the bright side. People gather indoors, sharing food, stories, music, and quiet reflection. The long night becomes a time for repair, planning, creativity, and communal warmth. Schools operate under structured indoor schedules. Work continues steadily, supported by technologies that make night as productive and comfortable as the extended periods of day elsewhere. The twilight belt remains a constant zone of activity. As the Earth slows even further, this region broadens slightly, creating a larger area where temperatures and lighting remain moderate throughout the rotation. Life here becomes even more abundant. Forests expand as species migrate toward the gentle climate of the perpetual horizon. Fields and orchards become rich with crops that thrive under constant soft light. Waterways teem with fish and bird life. Communities flourish in this environment that blends the best elements of both light and dark. The boundaries between the bright season, twilight, and the dark season become more pronounced. On the bright side, heat creates powerful updrafts that feed slow-moving storms. On the night side, cold air pools into basins and valleys, forming persistent pockets of frost. In the twilight regions, steady winds move gently along the gradient between hot and cold, creating a constant circulation that supports a stable and predictable climate. Migratory routes evolve across all three regions. Some animals move in slow spirals around the planet, following the position of the sun as Earth rotates. Others remain within a single region but adjust their patterns to align with the extended periods of light or darkness. Birds may remain in the twilight belt year-round, traveling only short distances to find the most favorable conditions. Large herbivores migrate slowly along the edges of biomes, grazing in areas that receive just the right balance of light and shade. Predators follow them with their own strategies, creating new ecological relationships shaped by the planet's slower rhythm. Human infrastructure changes as well. Transportation networks adapt to slower rotational dynamics, making use of winds and currents that follow predictable long-term patterns. Air routes circle the twilight belt, taking advantage of stable temperatures and reliable atmospheric pathways. Sea routes hug coastlines where moderate climates support consistent travel. Land-based trade becomes more localized, with goods moving gradually across regions rather than racing across continents in fast schedules. Energy systems become more region-specific. On the bright side, solar energy flows in abundance, allowing communities to power cooling systems, desalination plants, and agriculture. On the dark side, geothermal energy becomes the foundation of life, with deep earth heat supporting entire cities. In the twilight belt, a combination of wind, water, and gentle solar energy provides a balanced and sustainable network of power. Over many generations, human culture becomes deeply connected to the cycle of bright and dark seasons. Children grow up knowing the slow movement of the sun as a natural part of life. They learn to navigate landscapes that change gradually yet dramatically as months of light give way to months of darkness. Celebrations mark the transitions between these long phases, honoring the patient rhythms that govern the world. Festivals held during the long sunrise celebrate renewal, planting, and new beginnings. Those held during the long sunset celebrate harvest, gratitude, and reflection. As Earth slows even more, the bright season becomes intense enough to reshape entire continents. In some regions, extended sunlight fuels powerful growth in forests and grasslands, creating lush environments that flourish under the long warm period. In other areas, especially deep inland on large continents, extreme heat accumulates until the air becomes dry and shimmering. New deserts form slowly, stretching across plains where soil loses moisture faster than it can be replenished. These deserts develop unique ecosystems adapted to long light, deep heat, and the stillness of the world during the peak of the bright season. On the dark side, the opposite occurs. Snow and ice expand into great frozen plains that remain cold for immense stretches of time. Glaciers grow in some regions, sculpting valleys and carving new shapes into the land. Cold-adapted species flourish, finding food in rich waters beneath sea ice or in forests that remain dormant for long periods before waking during the next bright phase. The night side becomes a place of profound quiet, where the pace of life slows to a gentle rhythm under the soft glow of auroras that paint the sky with color. Between these extremes, the twilight belt continues to draw life from both sides, becoming the most densely populated and biodiverse region on the planet. Here, seasons unfold as gentle shifts in temperature rather than dramatic swings. Plants bloom continuously in soft light. Rivers flow steadily from snowmelt on the night side toward warm oceans on the day side. Animals migrate in subtle patterns, finding food and water in an environment that remains nurturing year-round. Human cities grow into long, ribbon-like settlements that follow the horizon, blending architecture with the contours of the land. As centuries pass, the combined effects of ice expansion, desert growth, and water redistribution reshape coastlines and landscapes. New lakes form where glacial melt pools during the transition between seasons. Ancient seas recede from equatorial regions as water continues migrating toward the poles. Coral reefs shift into new patterns, growing in areas where twilight oceans provide ideal conditions of temperature, light, and nutrients. Each movement is slow and patient, carved by the underlying forces of heat, cold, and gravity, acting on a world that has nearly forgotten its old fast spin. Through all these changes, one truth becomes clear. Life adapts. Humanity adapts. The Earth adapts. What once seemed like an unimaginable transformation has become the natural state of the world. People learn to read the sky with new understanding. They follow the long arc of the sun as it rises, sweeps slowly across the heavens, and sets over the span of months. They learn to thrive in the bright season, prepare for the dark season, and celebrate the balance of the twilight. The slowing of Earth continues, and the world approaches a point where rotation becomes so gentle that the bright and dark seasons stretch into vast chapters of time. The next stage of this journey will bring the most profound transformation yet, guiding the planet toward a future where the sun may one day pause above the horizon and hold its place for generations. As the long, bright and dark seasons continue shaping the world, the dynamics of Earth's surface intensify in ways that deepen the divide between the three great regions of the planet. The sunlight side grows more vibrant, more intense, and more challenging, while the darkness side becomes a realm of deep cold and incredible stillness. The twilight belt, suspended between them, evolves into a place of balance that supports not only life, but the flow of energy, culture, and movement across the entire world. During the height of the bright season, the sun hangs high in the sky for so long that it becomes almost a fixture rather than a moving presence. Light pours down in endless streams that warm the land to depths far below the surface. In some regions, rocks glow faintly with stored heat by the time the sun begins its slow descent weeks or even months later. Underground springs grow warmer, pushing mineral-rich water through networks of caves where unique ecosystems take shape, thriving in the gentle warmth rising from the earth. On the surface, vast stretches of land begin to show the unmistakable marks of long exposure to sunlight. Grasslands flourish where moisture remains, forming rolling fields of tall grasses that sway under slow winds. Forests adapt with trees whose leaves can fold, twist, or darken to shield themselves during the most intense parts of the bright season. Some species shed part of their foliage during the peak of heat as a protective mechanism, regrowing it gradually when the light softens. Wildlife adjusts too. Many animals develop behaviors that mirror the slow movement of the sun, resting in shaded shelters for long periods, emerging in the extended morning and evening to feed, explore, and interact. Rivers on the bright side take on a different character. Fed by snowmelt and rain from storms that build and break over long cycles, they run powerfully at some stages of the bright season, then decrease as heat intensifies and evaporation climbs. These rivers carve deep channels across the land, carrying minerals, nutrients, and sediments that shape ecosystems downstream. The long bright season provides such continuous warmth that new types of plant life flourish along these waterways, forming thick riparian zones that serve as wildlife corridors through otherwise harsh environments. As the bright season reaches its peak, the atmosphere becomes a place of slow, majestic movements. Storms grow to enormous sizes, stretching across continents and turning with gentle arcs shaped by weakened Coriolis forces. Clouds tower like drifting mountains, evolving for weeks as sunlight powers their internal dynamics. Rain falls over long periods, nourishing forests, wetlands, and grasslands that have adapted to these steady patterns. Lightning crackles occasionally within these massive systems, but even the storms move and change with a patience that matches the slower spin of the world. When the sun finally begins its long descent toward the horizon, the bright regions experience a long, drawn-out cooling that creates breathtaking environmental transitions. Colors shift in slow waves, painting landscapes in deep oranges, cool purples, and soft silvers as shadows lengthen. Animals become active again as the heat subsides, filling the air with calls, movement, and the steady rhythm of life, preparing for the dark season ahead. Communities gather to watch the sun sink lower, marking the transition with festivals, harvests, and traditions that honor the cycle of light and darkness. On the night side, the dark season unfolds in ways that feel timeless. After the extended twilight fades, the world settles under a canopy of stars that remain visible for months. Ice forms layer by layer on lakes, rivers, and coastlines, creating intricate patterns shaped by slow winds and temperature gradients. Forests enter deep dormancy, branches coated with frost that glitters in the starlight. Snowdrifts build gradually in quiet waves, sculpted by breezes that move from warm regions toward the cold. Over time, these drifts become hills of soft white that shimmer with crystals whenever the auroras ripple across the sky. Auroras become one of the defining features of the dark season. They move in long, graceful curtains that sweep across thousands of kilometers, shifting in color and intensity as the magnetic field channels solar particles into the upper atmosphere. People watch the sky with a sense of reverence, seeing patterns and shapes that drift slowly, sometimes glowing for hours in one place. These lights become markers of time themselves, helping people track the passage of days during the long stretch of darkness. Communities on the night side develop stunning forms of architecture to suit their environment. Buildings are arranged around geothermal vents or heat-retaining central structures that warm multiple homes from a single source. Roofs slope sharply to shed snow with ease. Walls are built with layered insulation and natural materials that trap warmth, while allowing the breath of the building to move gently outward. Streets are illuminated with low, warm light that reflects softly off the snow, creating an atmosphere of calm that makes the long dark peaceful rather than oppressive. People adapt culturally as well, developing rituals that celebrate endurance, creativity, and the communal feeling of life lived under the stars. Storytelling becomes a central part of life. Families and communities gather nightly to share tales of ancestors, explorers, and the slow turning of the world. Music, crafts, and scientific study flourish. Observatories record the movements of planets, galaxies, and distant stars with unprecedented clarity, producing maps of the cosmos more detailed than any created in earlier eras. The long darkness becomes a time of reflection, art, discovery, and quiet progress. In the twilight belt, the world continues to pulse with gentle life and steady activity. The sun remains low on the horizon, creating long shadows that wander slowly across the land. Plants here enjoy one of the most stable environments on the planet, with light that never becomes too strong and temperatures that rarely drift toward extremes. Forests expand in rich mosaics of species adapted to soft illumination. Meadows bloom with flowers that open continuously, using the constant light to attract insects and birds that pollinate them throughout the rotation. Human societies in the twilight belt build linear cities that trace the edges of continents, aligning themselves with rivers, coastlines, and fertile valleys. Homes are designed to capture soft light throughout the year, with open windows, skylights, and terraces that overlook the glowing horizon. People wake and rest in patterns guided more by personal rhythm than by the position of the sun, since the light never truly leaves. Social life extends across long stretches of gentle brightness, with markets, streets, and parks open for many hours. Art, science, education, and commerce thrive in an environment where mild conditions support continuous productivity. Trade networks linking the three regions become more sophisticated as the world continues adjusting to its slow spin. Transport ships cross oceans in predictable cycles, timing their journeys to follow stable wind patterns. Airships and advanced aircraft glide along the edge of the twilight belt, using the calm atmosphere as a natural highway. Goods move steadily from the bright side's solar-powered factories, from the night side's geothermal hubs, and from the twilight's fertile agricultural centers, forming a global system of exchange that ensures stability and growth. As generations pass, the world's climate settles into a clearer pattern. The bright side becomes a place of intense energy, rapid ecological change, and innovation in heat management. The night side becomes a realm of quiet strength, renewal, and scientific exploration. And the twilight belt becomes the heart of global civilization, where cultures blend, ideas flourish, and life thrives in a constant balance of light and shade. Through all of this, the slowing of Earth continues. The rotation grows even more gentle, inching gradually toward a state where the bright and dark seasons grow so long that they reshape the very concept of time. Clouds drift across the sky in slow, poetic arcs. Winds trace long, looping journeys across the planet. Oceans pulse with deep currents that move with the patience of centuries. Forests, deserts, ice fields, and meadows each find their rhythm within this evolving world. Humanity, in turn, continues adapting with grace. As the planet approaches the next threshold, the contrast between light and darkness reaches its fullest expression. The bright season shines with tremendous depth and intensity. The dark season cools the world with profound stillness. And the twilight belt glows like a living ribbon encircling the earth, guiding life gently into the future. The next transformation will be the most dramatic of all, shaping a world where the sun's movement is so slow that entire generations may witness a single sunrise or sunset. Earth is moving into an era defined by near stillness, where the balance of heat and cold becomes a defining force for every living thing. As Earth continues to slow, the sun's journey across the sky stretches into an almost imperceptible movement. What once took hours now takes months, and soon it extends into years. A sunrise becomes a rare and meaningful event, something spoken of with anticipation long before the first sliver of light appears on the horizon. Generations grow up under a single phase of the sun's great arc, living their entire childhoods in the glow of a long morning or the gentle decline of a never-ending sunset. On the bright side, a sun eventually reaches a point where its climb slows to a crawl. It hovers in the sky for so long that the concept of midday loses its meaning. Entire lives unfold under a sun that barely changes its position. Light becomes a constant companion, shaping every detail of the landscape. Plants that once opened and closed their leaves in response to daily cycles now hold them in steady positions for years, adjusting their physiology to cope with continuous brightness. Forests glow with soft green light for such long spans that the very act of photosynthesis takes on a different rhythm, shifting from daily to generational patterns. Temperatures rise gradually but relentlessly on the bright side. Heat seeps deeper into the ground than ever before, warming soil, rock, and aquifers. Some regions become inhospitable for humans, especially in continental interiors where shade cannot soften the slow, intense accumulation of warmth. In these places, scientists design reflective canopies, underground cities, and specialized crops that can survive the extended light. Solar energy becomes abundant beyond measure, and entire industries grow around capturing and storing it in vast seasonal repositories that feed power back to the night side of the world. Storms continue to form, but now their lifespans stretch across months. A single cloud system can grow, drift, and dissipate over the course of years. Rainfall becomes a slow, steady rhythm that nourishes some regions while leaving others to dry under the long, hovering sun. Rivers carve new paths across sunlit continents, their courses shifting gradually as rainfall patterns follow the immense, unhurried circulation of the atmosphere. As the bright side basks in endless illumination, the dark side sinks deeper into stillness. After the final glow of a sunset fades, darkness settles over the land for years at a time. The night grows so long that forests enter a form of slow hibernation. Trees conserve energy by withdrawing nutrients into their roots. Animals develop new behaviors that stretch across seasons of darkness. Some species sleep for long periods, waking periodically to forage under starlight. Others become entirely nocturnal, adapted perfectly to a world where the sun remains absent for generations. The cold deepens slowly but steadily. Oceans near the dark side form thick ice shelves that extend far into the sea. Beneath this ice, life flourishes in a world of muted sound and soft bioluminescent glow. Strange fish glide through shadowy waters, their bodies shimmering with gentle blue and green light. Crustaceans and mollusks feed on drifting particles that fall through the water column in slow, snow-like cascades. Larger animals like seals, whales, and deep-diving predators make their living in this twilight ocean, moving gracefully between holes in the ice and the open sea that still lies toward the twilight belt. People who choose to live on the dark side adapt with remarkable ingenuity. They build cities that glow warmly under insulated domes. They dig into mountainsides and valleys where geothermal energy provides steady heat. Large central reservoirs store energy imported from the bright side, ensuring comfort even during the coldest periods. Life in the darkness takes on a peaceful, introspective quality. Communities gather for long feasts, songs, and celebrations that honor the stars, the auroras, and the slow passing of time. Children grow up watching the night sky shift so slowly that its movements become part of the rhythm of their lives. The twilight belt becomes more important than ever. As the sun moves so slowly that it barely crosses the horizon, the twilight zone grows into a wide band of habitable land with gentle temperatures and constant soft light. This region supports forests, grasslands, and rivers that flow steadily from dark to light. It becomes the cradle of life for many species and the center of human civilization. Cities stretch in long, elegant lines across continents, built with architecture that embraces the low, permanent glow of the horizon. Along these twilight cities, markets, schools, and gathering places remain open for much of the long rotation. People organize their lives not based on a rising and setting sun, but on their own personal cycles of rest and activity. The constant light creates a world where time feels expansive and calm, a place where days blend smoothly into one another without a strict boundary between morning and evening. Technology continues to evolve in this near-still world. Power grids link the bright, dark, and twilight regions in vast networks that balance heat, light, and energy across the planet. High-altitude airships travel along the stable atmospheric currents of the twilight belt, carrying people and resources between continents. Ocean-going vessels cross slow currents that follow the great gradient between warm and cold. And underground transit systems allow movement between extreme regions, ensuring that the bright and dark sides remain connected to the twilight's gentle heart. As the world approaches near tidal lock conditions, ecosystems adapt on unprecedented timescales. Animals shift their breeding cycles to match the long seasons. Plants develop strategies to survive years of continuous light or cold sleep. Pollinators evolve new behaviors to follow flowering cycles that extend across long stretches of time. Predators follow these patterns with equal patience. The food webs of the world take on a slower, more deliberate character, shaped by the gradual movement of heat and cold. Ice flows on the dark side shape coastlines, pushing landforms outward or carving new paths inland as glaciers expand under years of darkness. On the bright side, deserts stretch deeper across continents, yet oases still form wherever rivers or underground springs break through. In the twilight belt, rainforests, wetlands, and mountain meadows blend into astonishing mosaics of life that shift gradually as the sun moves millimeter by millimeter across the horizon. Humans continue adapting with resilience and creativity. Civilizations evolve distinct cultural identities grounded in the long cycles of their region. On the bright side, people celebrate the unending sun with festivals of light, music, and innovation. On the dark side, communities embrace the tranquility of everlasting night, developing myths and philosophies rooted in the quiet of the stars. In the twilight, societies blend the two perspectives, valuing balance, harmony, and gentle continuity. Families pass down stories of earlier eras when the sun rose and set each day, describing the ancient world where time moved quickly and seasons followed familiar patterns. Children listen in wonder, imagining what it must have felt like to see sunlight return every morning or watch darkness fall every evening. To them, the idea of short days and nights seems almost mythical, a tale of a world long gone. Yet through all these immense changes, life remains abundant. The Earth, even in its slowed state, continues to support forests, oceans, skies, and the intricate web of organisms that inhabit them. The planet's new rhythm may be slower, but it is no less vibrant. Every moment is filled with purpose. Every region finds its balance. Every living thing finds its niche within the vast tapestry of light and dark. And now the world moves toward its most striking transformation, a stage where the sun's motion becomes so slow that it appears nearly fixed in the sky. Future generations will grow up under a single position of the sun, living entire lifetimes in one phase of light or darkness. The planet is approaching true stillness, and the next chapter will reveal what it means for Earth to live on the threshold of a permanent sunrise. As the sun's movement slows even further, Earth settles into an era defined by stillness. The great star that once traced a full arc across the sky in a single day now appears almost motionless. Its position changes so gradually that a person can live their entire childhood without noticing even the slightest shift in angle. Shadows trek slowly across the ground, barely drifting over the course of many years. buildings cast shapes that seem permanent, and landscapes hold their illuminated edges like paintings frozen in soft golden light. On the bright side, this near-fixed position of the sun creates a world of extraordinary contrasts. The regions closest to the subsolar point, where the sun rests directly overhead, become warm to depths few environments have ever experienced. Temperatures rise in slow waves, heating the ground, the stones, and even the air layers high above. This warmth moves gently outward in all directions, forming wide belts of hot, arid ecosystems that span great distances. Yet even in these extreme conditions, life adapts. Hardy trees send roots deep into the soil to reach underground reservoirs of water. Grasses evolve waxy surfaces to reflect sunlight. Animals develop remarkable strategies to conserve water, moving with purpose through shaded valleys, caves, and forested ridges that offer shelter from the relentless glow. Further from the central bright region, the warmth softens. Forests flourish, creating vast green continents filled with species adapted to continuous light. Trees spread broad leaves that remain open year-round. Mosses and ground ferns cover the forest floor, thriving in soft beams that filter through layered canopies. Birds nest for long seasons, raising young under predictable conditions. Insects hum and drift between flowers that bloom continuously, their cycles no longer tied to daily rhythms, but to more patient intervals shaped by the slow evolution of the sky. Closer to the twilight, the land becomes a place of harmony and natural wonder. Here, the sun sits low, painting the world with soft golds and pale pinks. Trees grow with branches angled toward the horizon. Rivers reflect the warm light in rippling paths that meander across plains. Animals graze calmly along edges of forests and meadows, enjoying temperatures mild enough to allow comfortable movement at all hours. This region, with its balanced climate, supports the densest diversity of life on Earth. Species from the bright and dark sides converge here, mingling in unique ecosystems that blend warmth and coolness, brightness and shadow. On the dark side, the near-fixed sun means that whole continents remain in an unwavering state of night. But this darkness is no longer something to fear. It becomes a realm of quiet, gentle beauty. The cold deepens slowly over the years, forming layers of snow and ice that settle into rolling plains and frozen forests. Yet beneath the surface, life adapts in remarkable ways. Trees enter long dormancies, their roots insulated by the blanket of snow. Hardy shrubs poke through the frost, feeding animals that have evolved thicker fur and specialized senses. The skies on the dark side offer a spectacle unmatched anywhere else. Stars hang in crisp clarity, and the slow rotation of the heavens becomes a backdrop for generations. Children grow up recognizing constellations that barely move throughout their lives, learning their shapes not through daily rise and fall, but through subtle, year-by-year shifts. Auroras dance in long curtains of light that ripple across thousands of kilometers, illuminating frozen fields with colors that shimmer quietly over extended periods. These lights become part of daily life, cherished and familiar, a natural companion during the long years of night. Human societies adapt gracefully to these changes. In bright regions, cities move underground or into deep shade, using advanced cooling systems to create comfortable environments. Solar collectors stretch across deserts, absorbing energy with astonishing efficiency. Farms use shade structures and hydroponic systems to grow crops that thrive in the continuous brightness. Communities gather during the cooler phases of the long light, celebrating the quiet moments when the sun dips slightly lower, before beginning its slow rise toward its nearly fixed position once again. On the dark side, life continues in warm, glowing pockets of geothermal energy. Cities built into mountainsides radiate gentle heat. Large underground farms grow crops under adjustable light systems. People travel across snow-covered plains in insulated vehicles guided by star maps that remain accurate for generations. The constant presence of darkness fosters deep introspection and creativity. Music, art, and scientific research flourish, especially astronomy, which becomes one of the most celebrated fields of study. Observatories track distant galaxies, nebulae, and clusters with incredible clarity, mapping the cosmos in detail never before possible. In the vast twilight belt between these extremes, humanity finds its greatest balance. Cities stretch along coastlines and river valleys, illuminated by the eternal glow of a sun that hovers near the horizon. Homes are built to capture the soft light that flows gently across the land. Gardens bloom year-round. Parks and plazas remain full of activity for long periods. People wake, work, rest, and play whenever they choose, following personal rhythms instead of the rigid schedules that once governed human life. In this constant glow, society develops a calm, unhurried pace. There are no deadlines tied to daylight, no sudden nights, no abrupt mornings. Time stretches into a peaceful continuum. Travel between bright, dark, and twilight regions becomes a carefully orchestrated system. High-altitude gliders ride the stable winds along the twilight belt, connecting distant cities. Undersea maglev tunnels link continents, allowing people to move from warm regions to cool ones in a matter of hours. Solar-powered vessels cross the bright oceans carrying goods and travelers. Ice-adapted ships navigate the frozen seas of the dark side, exploring landscapes made stable by long, predictable darkness. Over time, people come to appreciate the beauty of Earth's slow turn. The planet feels more like a living sculpture than a spinning sphere, illuminated and shadowed in vast, patient patterns. The sun becomes a fixed feature in the sky, a symbol of constancy rather than motion. Children in the twilight regions draw pictures of the sun resting on the horizon, a warm line across their world. Children on the bright side sketch it as a brilliant star hanging high above. Those on the dark side draw constellations and auroras, capturing the lights that shape their long nights. Ecosystems settle into deep equilibrium. Predators adjust their hunting patterns to cycles measured in years. Herbivores migrate slowly along belts of vegetation that shift with the changing temperature gradients. Forests in the bright regions grow thicker and more resilient. Ice forests on the dark side become home to species adapted to the long cold. The twilight belt becomes a cradle of diversity, where plants and animals from distant regions coexist in the gentlest climate on Earth. As Earth approaches near stillness, science reveals subtle effects that arise when rotation slows nearly to a halt. Atmospheric currents shift into enormous stable loops. Warm air rises continually on the bright side, flows outward across high altitudes, then descends over the dark continents in slow, steady patterns. Oceans form long, looping circulations that transport heat from the sunlit waters to the deep cold of the darkness. These great currents maintain balance across the planet, preventing the bright side from becoming unbearable and the dark side from reaching absolute freeze. Humanity watches all this unfold with a sense of awe and acceptance. The world has transformed, yet life continues in all its complexity and beauty. People thrive in different environments, each adapted to the slow dance of light and cold. Traditions grow around the immobility of the sun, the long glow of the twilight, and the shimmering darkness of the night side. The story of Earth becomes a story of patience, adaptation, and wonder, proving that even as the planet slows, the rhythm of life continues strong and steady. Now the world moves toward its final stage of stillness, where the sun becomes nearly fixed forever, and the long story of light and shadow reaches its quiet conclusion. As the age of near stillness continues, the way people think about time itself begins to change. In earlier eras, life was measured in days, weeks, and months. Later, as Earth slowed, people thought in seasons of light and seasons of darkness. Now, with the sun almost fixed in the sky, time feels more like a gentle unfolding than a series of separate moments. Lives are marked not by the rise and fall of the sun, but by milestones of growth, learning, and shared experience. Children in the twilight belt grow up under the same soft glow for many years. The sun remains resting near the horizon, painting their world in a constant blend of dawn and dusk. They learn that change is real, yet subtle, found in the shifting shapes of clouds, the slow growth of trees, the movement of rivers after long rains, and the gradual drift of stars across the sky over a lifetime. Parents teach them to notice quiet details, like the way leaves catch light at different angles, or the way distant mountains look slightly different from one year to the next, as snow lines adjust to small changes in climate. On the bright side, people learn patience in a different way. Their lives are closely tied to cycles of heat and relief, of planting and harvest that stretch across many years. A single orchard may be planted at the beginning of a long, bright phase and reach maturity during the same arc of sunlight, bearing fruit for an entire generation. Families work together over decades, tending the same groves and fields under a sun that never truly sets. They pass knowledge between generations, knowing that their grandchildren may see the same sun in nearly the same place in the sky as their grandparents did. On the dark side, time is measured by the growth of ice layers, the slow deepening and thinning of snow, and the patient work of communities that build and maintain warm sanctuaries. Children there come to understand that the darkness they know will not last forever, yet it will extend well beyond their own lives. They grow up with a deep sense of continuity, aware that their actions contribute to a story that stretches backward and forward across centuries. The cold outside their cities becomes part of their identity, something respected rather than feared, a constant presence that shapes their culture and values. Communication between regions helps to keep humanity unified. Messages travel along fiber optic cables under the oceans and through relay stations on tall towers in the twilight belt. People in bright regions share stories and images of their glowing deserts, towering forests, and shimmering solar fields. Those in the dark regions send recordings of the night sky, of auroras, and of music performed in echoing halls carved into rock, lit by gentle, warm light. The twilight belt shares scenes of rivers, fields, and bustling cities bathed in eternal glow. Through these exchanges, everyone remains aware that they are part of a single, shared planet, even though their skies look very different. Scientific understanding of the slowed Earth becomes rich and precise. Climate models now operate on timescales spanning centuries and millennia, exploring how heat and cold move around a world that barely turns. Geologists track the movement of tectonic plates, which continue to drift slowly across the mantle, building mountains and opening seas, while the sky above remains nearly unchanged. Biologists study species that have adapted to these new conditions, mapping the ways life finds opportunity in every niche of the transformed planet. Philosophers and storytellers find inspiration in this stillness. They speak of the Earth as a patient teacher, encouraging all living things to slow down, to breathe deeply, and to notice the quiet patterns woven through their lives. Myths emerge that describe the sun as a guardian who has chosen to rest, watching over the world from a nearly fixed position, offering light to some regions, a soft horizon glow to others, and reflective starlight to the car. Rest. These stories help people make sense of their place in the vast, gentle flow of time. Even in this near stillness, change has not stopped. Glaciers on the dark side continue to move slowly, grinding rock beneath them into fine powder that winds later carry toward twilight coasts. Deserts on the bright side shift in slow tides of sand, sculpting dunes into new shapes. Forests in the twilight belt grow, die, and regrow in cycles that play out like long green waves. Coastlines adjust as water redistributes according to the balance of heat and cold. The surface of the planet continues to evolve, just at a softer, quieter pace. And far above, space remains active. Meteors still streak across the sky, sometimes breaking up in bright flashes that briefly rival the sun. Comets pass through the solar system, dragging glowing tails that arc past the still world below. Distant stars are born and die, their light reaching Earth after journeys lasting millions of years. The cosmos continues its own story, vast and dynamic, contrasting with the unhurried turn of the small blue planet that has chosen a slower rhythm. For those listening to this story, it can be comforting to imagine this quieter Earth. A world where the rush of daily life has softened, where the sky changes slowly, and where people move in harmony with a more relaxed pace of time. It is a reminder that life can adapt to many different conditions, and that even when the most fundamental rhythms of the planet change, there is room for resilience, creativity, and peace. On this almost still Earth, every moment has more room to breathe. Every sunrise, every shadow, every drift of cloud or fall of snow carries a deeper sense of meaning. The planet has not lost its vitality. It has simply chosen a slower song, and all who live upon it, in light, in twilight, and in darkness, learn to listen. As Earth drifts into its era of near stillness, the world reaches a profound equilibrium. The sun hangs in the sky like a guardian star, warming the bright side with a steady presence while leaving the dark side wrapped in an endless, gentle night. Between them, the twilight belt glows softly along the curve of the horizon, forming a living ring that circles the planet. Here, day and night blend into one calm glow, a place where the world feels perfectly balanced. Humanity has learned to live within this new arrangement, not by resisting it, but by settling into its rhythm. Generations have grown up with skies that barely change. Children on the bright side know a sun that sits nearly motionless above them, and they mark the slow drift of its position with curious wonder. Children on the dark side know the night as their constant companion, learning the shapes of constellations that move so slowly that a single star can be followed for years as it glides through the sky. And along the twilight belt, people live under a steady light that feels almost like an eternal sunrise. The ecosystems of Earth have also found their balance. Forests on the bright side grow in patterns shaped by continuous sunlight. Trees stand taller and stronger, with thick canopies that shield the understory from deep heat. Insects move in long, patient cycles, drifting through forests with the ease of creatures that no longer depend on quick daily rhythms. Birds take flight in slow spirals, guided by patterns of wind that shift gradually across the skies. On the dark side, the world is defined by cold, quiet beauty. Snow reflects the starlight, shimmering in soft tones of silver and blue. Animals move through the landscape with a kind of grace that matches the stillness around them. Their lives stretch across long periods of darkness, guided by instinct, memory, and the faint glow of auroras that fall across the sky in drifting waves of color. Beneath the ice, the oceans remain alive. Strange fish glide through deep waters, illuminated by soft bioluminescence that flickers like constellations drifting through the sea. The twilight belt continues as the most welcoming region on the planet, a gentle meeting point between light and dark. Rivers flow through fields that remain warm enough to support forests and farms. Rain falls in soft patterns shaped by the slow interaction of warm and cool air. Mountains glow at their peaks, illuminated by reflections of light from the horizon. Here, life thrives with the greatest diversity. Plants bloom continuously, nourished by constant mild light. Animals travel with ease across gentle valleys, following instinctive paths that lead them to food, shelter, and water. Human settlements across this belt glow warmly in the perpetual horizon light. Cities curve along coastlines and rivers, their buildings designed to capture the soft glow of the sky. People move through streets that never truly darken. They speak of time not with words like morning or night, but with terms that reflect the gentle unfolding of life. A child may say, "I was born during the long, soft phase, when the sun sat just a little lower," or "I remember when the light warmed our valley a little more than it does today." Technology continues to support life across all three regions. Solar collectors on the bright side gather energy that is sent around the world through vast networks of cables and superconducting lines. Geothermal systems on the dark side provide reliable warmth, allowing cities to flourish beneath the gentle shimmer of the stars. And in the twilight regions, wind turbines and hydroelectric systems convert the slow movement of air and water into balanced streams of energy. The result is a world that feels connected, stable, and deeply peaceful. From space, Earth looks nothing like the planet humanity once knew. The bright side glows in shades of gold and white. The dark side gleams in deep blues and silvers. And the twilight belt wraps around the world in a ring of soft rose and amber light. Clouds form in long, sweeping bands. Storms move in slow spirals. Ice caps spread gently across the night side, while deserts shimmer beneath the unmoving sun. Yet despite its new appearance, Earth remains unmistakably alive. Rivers still carve paths across continents. Oceans still pulse with currents that move heat across the planet. Forests still breathe, releasing life-sustaining oxygen into the air. And humans still look up at the sky with wonder, feeling connected to the world beneath their feet and the universe above their heads. As the planet continues its slow movement, a new perspective begins to emerge. With the sun almost fixed in the sky, people start to see Earth not as a sphere spinning through space, but as a world suspended between light and darkness. This duality becomes part of the human imagination. Artists paint images of the bright deserts, the dark ice fields, and the glowing twilight belt. Writers describe the contrast between light and shadow as a symbol of balance. Philosophers reflect on the meaning of living in such a harmonious divide. Science also takes on a cosmic tone. With skies that barely change, astronomers observe distant stars with incredible clarity. The slow rotation of the planet allows telescopes to track galaxies and nebulae with unprecedented precision. Researchers chart the motion of planets across the solar system and follow faint objects in the outer reaches of space. They develop detailed maps of exoplanets, studying their atmospheres and surface temperatures. In quiet observatories beneath cold, clear skies, they peer into the ancient past of the universe, observing the faint blue light of distant galaxies that formed billions of years ago. People living on the dark side come to know the stars as intimately as earlier cultures knew the changing colors of the sky. They observe clusters of stars drifting slowly across the firmament, learning their patterns across decades. They track the movements of planets as they glide through constellations in motion so deliberate that they become part of the rhythm of life itself. They witness rare celestial events with the patience of people who understand that time unfolds slowly, generously, and beautifully. On the bright side, people look outward too. Observatories built in high deserts study the sun in detail, examining the granules on its surface and the arcs of magnetic energy that rise and fall across its glowing sphere. Scientists follow the bright star with instruments that can detect faint fluctuations in its intensity. They discover subtle patterns in the way sunlight interacts with Earth's atmosphere, reflecting and refracting in ways that shape the world's climate. As the centuries unfold, humanity's relationship with the universe deepens. People begin to see themselves as part of a vast cosmic ecosystem. They understand that Earth, though slowed, remains a dynamic world orbiting a star that itself moves through the galaxy. They learn that the Milky Way is rotating, carrying the solar system on a journey through spiral arms filled with gas, dust, and distant suns. They discover that the galaxy itself moves through intergalactic space, drifting toward its neighbors in a majestic dance that spans billions of years. This cosmic awareness brings a sense of peace. People find comfort in the idea that the universe is vast, ancient, and filled with wonders. They understand that their still Earth is part of a much larger story, a story written in stars, galaxies, and the quiet tides of cosmic time. As they look up at the sky, whether from the bright side, the twilight belt, or the dark side, they feel a connection that transcends their place on the planet. They belong to something much greater. Life continues, steady and resilient. Ecosystems flow with gentle rhythms. Winds move in long loops across continents. Oceans send currents through deep channels. Cities hum with quiet activity. Families grow across the generations. And through it all, the sun remains in its near-fixed position, watching over the world with patient, unwavering light. With the Earth nearly still and the sky drifting slowly around it, humanity begins to embrace the quiet beauty of a planet in balance. And as the long story of Earth's transformation draws near its end, a gentle peace settles over the world, guiding it softly into a new era of light, shadow, and cosmic serenity. As the stillness deepens, Earth enters a phase of extraordinary stability. The planet, once spinning in a rhythm that shaped every hour of human history, now turns so slowly that the sky above feels timeless. The sun remains almost fixed in place, its light stretching across the bright side in a warm, unwavering glow. The dark side rests in perpetual night, calm and peaceful beneath the quiet shimmer of stars. Between them, the twilight belt encircles the world in a soft ring of colors, a perpetual horizon that guides the movement of winds, rivers, life, and people. In this final age of the slowed Earth, time is no longer measured by the movement of the sun or the rising of shadows. Instead, time is marked by the slow shift of seasons across vast stretches of the planet, the gentle drift of constellations, and the steady transformation of landscapes shaped by heat and cold. Generations live and grow within these cycles, learning to see beauty in the subtle, the patient, and the eternal. On the bright side, landscapes glow with light that never leaves. Forests flourish in long-standing radiance. Leafy canopies form grand green cathedrals where birds glide through stable currents of warm air. The sunlight, resting high above, pours gently into valleys and plains, shaping ecosystems that thrive under a sky but never darkens. Plants adapted to constant illumination grow in broad sheets of color, forming carpets of gold, green, and pale blue across the land. Rivers sparkle as they flow from the twilight belt, feeding fertile regions that anchor communities in oases like clusters. People living in these bright regions build homes partially into the earth, using natural insulation to regulate the slow climb of heat. Their architecture blends seamlessly with the land, shaped by curved lines and soft colors that reflect sunlight. Tall, reflective towers collect solar energy in vast quantities, powering technologies that help maintain cool environments, purify water, and support agriculture. Cities here feel warm and vibrant, filled with slow-moving rhythms that match the soft stillness of the sky. On the dark side, the long night has become a realm of deep tranquility. Snow-covered plains stretch into the distance, illuminated by starlight that travels across unimaginable distances to reach the silent ice below. Forests remain asleep for vast spans of time, their branches frosted with crystals that glimmer like tiny stars. The cold settles into the land with gentle consistency, creating environments that support unique life forms adapted to frigid beauty. Reindeer-like animals wander through snowy valleys, guided by memory rather than sight. Burrowing creatures seek geothermal warmth beneath the surface. Wolves, silent and sure-footed, move through the dark in patterns that repeat across generations. Human communities on the dark side are havens of warmth. Houses glow softly from geothermal cores, carved into mounting walls or built around deep wells that release heat from the planet's interior. Streets are lined with lamps that cast amber light onto the snow. People gather in communal halls where music drifts through the air like a slow heartbeat. They learn from childhood to read the stars with extraordinary care, navigating by constellations that barely shift from year to year. Their stories are filled with reverence for the night, with songs that celebrate the auroras, the seasons of cold, and the quiet dignity of the frozen world. The twilight belt remains Earth's most dynamic realm, a living bridge between the deep light and the gentle night. Here, the sun hovers near the horizon, coloring the sky with endless pastels. The light never becomes harsh, nor does it disappear completely. Fields of grasses sway in constant softness. Forests glow with subtle gradients, and rivers reflect shades of gold, rose, and soft lavender. Wildlife thrives in this balanced environment, moving freely across plains and valleys. Birds nest year-round, insects hum among blooming flowers, and mammals travel through mild climates that offer safety, food, and water. Humanity flourishes along this glowing ring. Cities stretch for hundreds of kilometers, connected by paths, rivers, and soft-lit boulevards. People spend their days in gentle illumination, working, learning, and exploring at their own pace. The lack of sharp boundaries between day and night creates a peaceful culture, free from the urgency that once defined human timekeeping. Life here feels timeless, calm, and deeply connected to the rhythms of the natural world. Beyond the surface, the oceans also settle into their new patterns. Warm waters on the bright side flow slowly toward the twilight belt, carrying nutrients that support rich marine life. Cold currents descend from the dark side, feeding unique ecosystems beneath the ice. Massive, slow-moving gyres glide across the oceans, redistributing heat and maintaining a global balance that prevents extremes from overwhelming the planet. Coral reefs bloom along twilight coasts, their colors glowing beneath gentle sunlight. Whales migrate through gradients of temperature and light, following instinctive paths that have shifted with the planet, but remain strong and ancient. The skies above this transformed Earth are clearer than they have been for much of human history. With fewer storms and calmer patterns of wind, clouds move in graceful sweeps that linger for weeks. High in the atmosphere, thin veils of ice crystals stretch across continents, shimmering softly in the glow of the sun. On the dark side, the clear, frost-laden air offers views of the cosmos so sharp that even the faintest stars appear bright. Entire galaxies can be seen with the naked eye, floating in the black sea of the sky like luminous islands. Astronomy becomes a universal language. People across the planet study the heavens with patient fascination. They chart the slow procession of stars, planets, and nebulae. They learn about the life cycle of suns, the behavior of distant galaxies, and the structure of the universe. They look out into space with calm curiosity, feeling a deep connection to the wider cosmos. Humanity's understanding of its place in the universe becomes richer, more meaningful, and more serene. Far beyond Earth, the solar system continues its own path around the galactic center. The sun drifts through a sea of stars, carrying Earth along on its long, slow journey. The Milky Way rotates in graceful spirals, its arms filled with clusters of newborn suns and ancient remnants of stars long gone. The universe expands gently, stretching across unimaginable distances. And yet, from the perspective of someone standing on the still Earth, these cosmic motions unfold in complete peace. This slow world encourages reflection. People begin to understand that life can adapt to extraordinary change. A planet that once spun quickly has found a new balance. Ecosystems have shifted. Climates have reorganized. Species have evolved. Human civilization has discovered new ways to thrive. The slowed Earth is not a story of loss, but a story of resilience, patience, and harmony. And now, as the world settles fully into its final equilibrium, the cosmic perspective deepens. Imagine standing in the twilight belt, looking out across a horizon that glows in endless soft gold. The land stretches calmly before you, the air warm and still. Far beyond, the bright side glimmers with shimmering heat, and the dark side rests under a quilt of stars. Above, the sky holds constellations that move so slowly they feel eternal. The sun hangs gently just above the horizon, a warm companion that will remain there for centuries. In this moment, the earth feels peaceful. The air moves in slow, patient breaths. The oceans pulse with deep, steady currents. Forests whisper quietly as leaves tremble in soft wind. Snow falls in gentle waves on the dark side, each flake drifting through cool air with delicate grace. Rivers wind through glowing valleys, catching the light in ripples that stretch into the distance. The universe watches silently. Stars shine across the sky like ancient lanterns. The Milky Way arcs overhead, a river of light connecting countless worlds. Nebulae glow in distant constellations. Comets streak softly across the heavens. The cosmos expands, timeless and vast. And for the listener, here in this quiet moment, the slowed earth becomes a place of deep calm. A place where time loosens its grip. A place where the mind can rest. You can imagine the warmth of the twilight glow on your skin, the gentle air, the peace of a world unhurried, the soft rustle of forests, the distant hum of oceans, the hush of snow on the dark side, and overhead, a universe so wide and so ancient that it seems to hold you in its arms. The story of Earth's slowing ends not in chaos, but in balance. Not in darkness, but in harmony. A world transformed, yet full of life. A planet that has found a gentler rhythm. And as you drift into the quiet of your own night, you can let that stillness settle within you. Feel the calm. Feel the space. Feel the slow, cosmic breath of a world at peace. Let your thoughts drift like clouds across a soft horizon. Let your body sink into comfort. Let your mind rest beneath the endless sky. And as the universe continues its quiet expansion, carrying Earth along on its gentle journey through the stars, you can let yourself drift too, carried softly into sleep by the slow turning of a peaceful world.